shouldn't say hot. It's just kind of. Just starts to get cold. Turn it back off. Okay. Jack, number 3, what would that be?
Decay.
Decay, yep. Number 4, Gracie. Number 5, Jacob.
Decay.
Kenji, number 6. Yeah. Number 7, Emily. Number 8, Ashton. Number 9, Jaden. Yep, so it's growth. Good. Number 10, Sophie.
Okay.
Kimberly, 11. And then 12, Jack. Okay, good. It's pretty easy to look at the picture and tell if it's growth or decay. Might not be as straightforward to look at the equation and tell if it's growth or decay. It has to be a couple of things we look for. One thing that we look for, and we are going to list these on page 413, by the way. That's what I mean by it's kind of a hodgepodge of these two put together. There's one. I'm not going to worry about the numbers. One thing we can do, if it's to be growth, if you just look at B, and if B is greater than 1, and there's no reflections. Now let's think about why we'd have to worry about reflections. Why don't you write that down and I'll scroll back to it. Yeah?
I would say, because if it reflected, wouldn't it be like the opposite?
Yes, absolutely right. That's why we have to worry about reflections. For example, here. I guess I'll look at these two. Now, on the left here, it's growth. But if I reflect it, now it suddenly becomes decay. Same thing if I reflect it the other way. Up here, it's growth. If I reflect it across the x-axis, it then becomes decay. Now, what if I reflected it again? So let's say the equation was y equals -5 to the negative x. So I'd take this same and I'd reflect it across the x or the y-axis.
It would be growth.
Yeah. It would turn back around into that.
It'd be kind of like it just canceled each other.
It'd be kind of like it canceled each other, except for it would still, I mean, it'd still make it look different.
Yeah.
But it's still going to go back to growth. We would just put it in a different spot. So, what we get from that is its growth if B is greater than 1 and there's no reflections or 2 reflections. is going to work the same way. I'm going to skip a couple of lines here just so I have room, because we're going to add to it. And decay looks the same except for, instead of B being greater than 1, B is going to be between 0 and 1. Again, no reflections or 2 reflections. Okay, so if we had already decided, I think we already figured out, if on growth it had been B is greater than 1, and we just did 1 reflection, what happens to it? Yeah, it flips it, it becomes decay. So that's the second part of these. If I had B is greater than 1 and just 1 reflection, it's going to be decay. And if I had B was between 0 and 1 and just 1 reflection, it would be growth. I don't memorize those. I kind of do a little sketch and think of growth would look like this, and if I flipped it, it would look like this. But you can do it however you want to. So back on page 409, we're going to figure out how we go from the equation to the graph, just in general forms, not graphing it perfectly, because we can all do X and Y axis, or not X and Y, X and Y charts. We can all do that. So I can look at number 1 from page 409. And I know that B has got it is greater than 1. And I know there are no reflections. So from that, I know it's growth, which I already knew from the picture, but what if I wasn't given the picture? Then, can you kind of look through the 1 through 12 and see if you can make some kind of connection between what's added or subtracted? And the picture. So like on number 1, we're adding 1. On number 2, we're subtracting 1. 3, we're subtracting 2. Do you see anything that corresponds to the 1, negative 1, negative 2 in the picture?
When it's subtracting, it makes it lower.
Okay. You're lower than what?
Like it puts it more down the x-axis.
Yeah. So on this first one, notice, if it's 1, notice where this dotted line is at. It's at 1. Which is what you were saying. You just weren't making that one extra step. On number 2, it's negative 1. Notice it's down here. Negative 1. On number 3, it's negative 2. Notice it's down there. And negative 2. Same thing for all of them. And so that's helpful. And then, of course, I can look at it, and I know it's growth, again, because B is greater than 1, and there were no reflections. So it's good to go. look at one like number 8. What's our B on number 8? Yeah, it's between 0 and 1, but yeah. And are there any reflections? Yeah, there's just one reflection. So usually between 0 and 1 is decay. But since there's one reflection, it's got to be growth. And we also know that this -1 corresponds to that horizontal asymptote at -1.
How do you know there's a reflection?
Because of this minus sign right here. When you have a minus sign in front of, or B is negative, it means it flips across the y-axis. So because of that minus sign in front, and I know it's got to flip, I said across the y, but across the x-axis, that's how I know this picture should be below that dotted line. So I'll put that here, below horizontal asymptote. And then I know it's supposed to be growth, so that's how I know it would have to start down low and then go closer and closer to the asymptote. Okay. We're going to do more on that. I just want to get that in a nutshell. All right, what I want you to do, not really any homework, but it's where we're going to start tomorrow in class. I want you to do 1, 2, and 3 on page 413. Try to fill in this table. And I'm going to pass my iPad around tomorrow, and y'all are going to fill in some of these boxes.